My name is Professor Helen Newall, and this visual essay is about a project in which a team of 3 artist academics made a creative response to a recent donation to the Edgehill University Archive. This consisted of a journal, written neatly in beautiful copperplate handwriting, detailing its author's experiences as a soldier in World War I, and is complemented by an album of a few photographs and a small collection of news clippings, cards, and military papers. Written by Will Bradshaw, the prose is lively and immediate. This is a page-turner of spare but impactful language, which conveys the abject perils and brutality of war with quiet but powerful emotion. This material was our starting point in the creation of a sequence of 8 short films which comprise a story of the Great War. Each film uses fragmented excerpts from the journal and digitally treated photographs from the album to capture an essence of their visual content and materiality as much as their theme. The concept, the selection of the excerpts, and the animation is mine. Dr. Karen Lauke was commissioned to create its atmospheric soundscape using synthesised acousmatic music overlaid with Foley sound effects of, for example, trains, horses, marching feet to the guns of battle. And Dr. James Macpherson performed as Will Bradshaw, excellently bringing to life his prose.
A great big German coal box bursted close by me, and I ducked low as I heard the pieces buzzing as they dropped around. Our officer was standing close behind me, and a piece...
This audio of sound and voice was mixed into a score, which became an audio storyboard, to which was added the visual element of the films, thus subverting the more usual hierarchy of sound being added after the visuals are created. In selecting excerpts from the journal to make this sonic script, I did not try to construct a traditional coherent narrative, but instead moved thematically, albeit in a chronological way, but jumping through the journal's content. In narrative theory terms, fabula and sujet, as defined by the Russian formalists Vladimir Prop and Viktor Shklovsky, are pertinent here, where fabula refers to the raw material, the chronology of the story, and sujet to the way this story is organised in its telling, which might not at all be chronological. I've taken the fabula of Bradshaw's original and created an essence of it, a sujet, dispensing with the narrative coherence and superb detail of his story. This work exists in jump cuts, and in the gaps we hope the viewer finds imaginative bridges to move from one extract to another, and also the desire to move back to the original itself. Part of my ongoing art practice for the past 9 years has been to bring a sense of the subject to the objects of the archive, but not one without the other. It is interesting to note at this point what performance studies scholar Peggy Phelan has to say of the failure of photographic and video forms to document live art. Performance's only life is in the present, she writes. Performance cannot be saved, recorded, or documented. This notion of replacement is also discussed in adaptation theory. Imagine for a moment Scarlett O'Hara, and no doubt an image of Vivien Leigh in Selznick's 1939 film adaptation of Mitchell's 1936 novel Gone with the Wind springs to mind. It's a complex area that invokes a postmodern mise on a beam of replacements. We might note that Bradshaw himself is attempting to preserve his memory of several important life events, and if the immediacy of battle parallels the live performed event, while events disappear into history, lost forever, they are replaced by the accounts of them, the documentation that remains. The Somme is a battle which is long finished, but Bradshaw's visceral experience of its chaos is captured by his documentation of it and his punchy eyewitness testimony. But even his own writing of it can never fully explain what it was like to be there. The event is never fully captured. It is lost and replaced by the various accounts of it. In making our response to Bradshaw's work, we did not want to supplant or replace his account. I was aware that while the journal is once removed from the actual events, we were twice removed in time and place from his experiences. To prevent that distance growing further, I included the materiality of the journal and the damage of the pre-restored photographs in the fabric of the visuals, never letting the viewer leave these behind, so that they see the film work that responds to the source, but they also see and are reminded of the source as well. What is not left behind is the visual textile of Bradshaw's handwriting over the journal pages, the biro marks on the surface of a photograph, the folds in the cardboard. These markers of the materiality of the documentation are still very much present throughout the films. And so the photographs were digitally treated, restored, and animated, and amplified with moving textures of clouds and plumes of smoke and landscapes taken from original photographs in my own World War I archive. The text itself is thus not just heard but also seen. The original archival document is present in its performance in the audio and foregrounded in the visual. Not all the lines shown from the journal are vocalized. The viewer thus remains as much a reader of the document as a viewer of the films. The result, I feel, is an impressionistic audiovisual experience of the journal and the photographs, something which we deem to be a visual form of radiodrama or audiovisual theatre. In the world of the archive, this might be described as what Simone Ostov called a disruption of representation, produced by contemporary artists, critics and curators. She goes on. Their performances in, with and of the archive are producing an ontological change from the archive as a repository of documents to the archive as a dynamic and generative production tool. This is important because when documentation is necessarily catalogued and systematised and preserved, the messy chaos of the life of which these documents are the debris can become less prominent. The precious paper is preserved, the fingers that scratch the photograph or smudge the text are long gone. In their lives, the subjects lived and the objects travelled with them as possessions, stuff hid under the bed or boxed away in the attic. Now it's the other way round. The objects exist in archives as precious holdings in environmentally controlled conditions to protect their material existence, while the ghosts of their previous owners fade. I'm not advocating for anything different in the preservation of documents. This is rather a plea that the creative interventions of curators, historians and artists not be considered peripheral. We've tried to retain the essence of both the archive and the human materiality of it, what Camilla Elliott calls the intertextual exchange over one-way transfer. I hope that by making equal partners of the original document and our creative response to it, we have found the continuous relay between the two theorised by Ostov. And although she calls this contamination, that from this relay come the new knowledges. For while the curation of the archive is a systematic and methodical process of looking, assessing, cataloguing, organising material, the responses we've made here have been a form of slow looking, facilitating an emotional and less than systematic cataloguing, but nevertheless an analysis of the material. This has been an ekphrasis in reverse, where words have led to imagery and have enabled a search for different insights via a dramatisation of archival potential to reveal alternative information, or what Marina Abramovich calls liquid knowings. A brief example. We noted in our performing and animating the text the immaculate control of the after-event voice and its past tense narration, and how this falls away into the immediacy of the present tense, the handwriting degenerating as the battle raged. We noted the missed words that have been inscribed later and those which are crossed out and corrected, all revealing the intrusion of the emotion of reawakened memory. And whilst curators and transcribers might do this, we tried them out and heard the inflections of a voice, calm, impassioned, narrative, angry. We tried the various versions. This was the archaeology of emotions held between the lines, and these observations then informed further comments Bradshaw makes about the enemy. The times when he was afraid for his life or was grateful for small kindnesses. For while there was dangerous cruelty, there were also instances of great humanity, of two opposite forces exchanging understanding and kindnesses. So it might be between theory and practice, between curation and art, the science of the archives and the insights of ekphrasis.
The enemy were prepared for us, and instantly they swept our line with bullets from machine guns and rifles. We were compelled to drop after only advancing a few yards to save our annihilation. We spotted them in large numbers as they laid in the prone position. Only about 50 yards of grassland divided us, and the experience of exchanging bullets was a most exciting one. Incessant rifle and machine gun firing was the common thing until the enemy decided to scatter down the slope from our view. Received the order to get out, and as we did so, I turned and found the enemy attempting to close in on us. His machine guns blazed away like fury as we retired. I put on speed and caught up with a cluster of men belonging to different regiments. Nobody seemed to be in command now. It seemed every man for himself. We came to a narrow road which cut through the field we were crossing, and here we were met by a brigade major whom I knew well. He was very much excited and commenced shouting these words: "For God's sake, men, don't forget you are fighting for Britain!" He commanded us to get down on the cop side of this field on the edge of this narrow road and face the enemy. We were told to fire our rifles in our turns at the approaching Germans. Surely, every man told off to stay the Hun hordes knew perfectly well that we were meant for a great sacrifice.